The latest UN statement comes after the UN mission in Lebanon confirmed that 2 Israeli Defense Force tanks destroyed the main gate of a UN position in Ramya, forcibly entering the position. The tanks then left about 45 minutes later after UNIFIL protested through its liaison mechanism, arguing that the IDF presence was putting peacekeepers in danger. The IDF later offered a different version, that in an effort to evacuate injured soldiers, it accidentally backed into the UN position. This is just the latest incident in which UN peacekeepers, equipment or premises have been hit by the IDF in southern Lebanon. Israel had asked the UN to move its peacekeeping forces north of where the fighting is taking place, with the country's Prime Minister apologizing for the harm to UNIFIL soldiers.
Mr. Secretary General, get the UNIFIL forces out of harm's way. It should be done right now, immediately.
We are not fighting the Lebanese people. We are fighting the Iranian terror branch Hezbollah, which took over Lebanon. I want to address the UN Secretary General directly from here. It is time that you take UNIFIL out of Hezbollah's strongholds and out of the combat areas. The IDF repeatedly asked for that and was refused repeatedly. With the aim of providing Hezbollah terrorists with a human protecting shield, your refusal to evacuate UNIFIL soldiers makes them hostages in the hands of Hezbollah. It endangers them as well as our soldiers.
For his part, the UN chief reiterated that attacks against peacekeepers were in breach of international law and repeated his call for a cessation of hostilities.
I condemn the fact that there was shooting against the UN premise, wounding 2 peacekeepers, which is a violation of international humanitarian law. Peacekeepers must be protected by all parties of the conflict. And what has happened is obviously condemnable. There was naturally a reaction from many sides in solidarity with the peacekeepers that were wounded, and in telling Israel very clearly that this incident is intolerable and it cannot be repeated.
A view echoed by his deputy spokesperson.
UNIFIL peacekeepers are present in South Lebanon to support a return to stability under a Security Council mandate. Any deliberate attack on peacekeepers is a grave violation of international humanitarian law and of Security Council Resolution 1701. Our peacekeepers are following up with the IDF on these matters. This comes as the recent escalation along the Blue Line is causing widespread destruction of towns and villages in South Lebanon, while rockets continue to be launched towards Israel, including civilian areas. In the past days, our peacekeepers say incursions from Israel into Lebanon were seen in Nakura and other areas. IDF soldiers have clashed with Hezbollah elements on the ground in Lebanon.
This as over 100 countries and entities joined by South Africa and the African Union condemned a decision by Israel's foreign minister declaring the Secretary General persona non grata, a decision Israel Katz reinforced Sunday over his view that the UNSG did not go far enough in condemning Iran's missile strike against Israel, among other issues. Katz said the SG could continue to seek support from UN member states, but that the decision would not change, as the UN High Commissioner denounced the toxic rhetoric against the organization and its agencies.
Amid this escalating violence, we are appalled by the sweeping, inflammatory language on multiple sides. Recent language threatening Lebanese people as a whole and calling on them to either rise up against Hezbollah or face destruction like Gaza risks being understood as encouraging or accepting violence directed against civilians and civilian objects in violation of international law. Ongoing denigration of the UN, in particular UNRWA, is unacceptable. This kind of toxic rhetoric from any source must stop.
A conflict in Lebanon, Israel and Gaza that appears to have no end in sight. A Hezbollah drone strike on an Israeli army base in central Israel killed 4 soldiers, wounding several more in what the group called a retaliatory strike for the Israeli strike on Beirut that killed 22 people last Thursday. While in central Gaza, Israeli shelling of a school used to shelter displaced Palestinians killed 22 people, including several children. All this as reports emerge that Israel's Prime Minister is considering a plan to seal off humanitarian aid to northern Gaza in an attempt to starve off Hamas militants, with consequences for the civilian population there who would be forced to leave or be trapped in a closed military zone. The World Food Programme says the main crossings into the north have been closed and that no food aid has entered since October 1st. Sherwin Riceby's SABC News, New York.